when I looked into this topic, I was so scatterbrained too. I was looking into like neurobiology and stuff. I'm like, I can't learn this in an hour. Like, I can't learn all of this in an hour. I have to take a more surface level approach or kind of ignore the biology part of it entirely. Like, I was thinking development of the brain. Like, at what point does the kid become conscious?
Yeah, I tried looking that up and I had no luck.
And I was like, sense of self. Okay, let's get into, where in the brain is the sense of self. And I remembered hearing a neurologist say that we don't really know where this self isn't a place in the brain. And I looked into it a bit more, and it's like, it's not a place in the brain. we don't really know what the self would be from a physical standpoint, looking at it in the brain. And so I was just like, oh geez. So again, I just kind of looked around, and there are varying levels of self-awareness, and you kind of touched on this, like full awareness. Like, what would you consider full awareness?
Full awareness?
Yeah. To give you something to go off of, I called something first awareness, which is kind of what we're talking about, which is like when you first realized things, like, and I'm talking about the self. Just you first realize things regarding yourself. Like, you can realize things,
yes,
but then when you kind of have the idea, oh, me.
So they're just like levels of being aware, or awareness.
Yeah, awareness of yourself. Like, in the beginning, you're like, oh, I am,
Okay, well, if we're going off of that and we're doing full awareness, I would think that's the very peak. That's pretty much understanding the insides and outside of a single thing or person or whatever it is.
Yeah, like self-awareness.
Yeah.
Like,
so I think that's what it is when it's full awareness, when you have a complete understanding of an object or, like I said, whatever it is.
Can you have full awareness?
I say it is possible.
Is it one of those reference frame things? Like, it depends on kind of what you're looking at?
Yeah, definitely. Because even if you are aiming for full awareness, I want to say it is still very hard to reach that point, just because there is always something new being added or something that just didn't cross your mind, or, there's that, just a small detail that just slips by.
So given that context, when you hear self-awareness, what would full self-awareness look like?
I feel like full self-awareness would be more being in tune with your emotions, how you are physically. Just, it goes back to self-actualization, and acceptance, just realizing what you are, who you are, the things you do, why you do it, just pretty much all that stuff, and going into your subconscious and making that conscious, so you know pretty much everything you know about yourself, and being fully self-aware about that. I would say it's very difficult, because even the people who think that they are there aren't actually there, because something in their head is just blocking that, making them think that they actually are. But I do believe it's possible. There are people who have been, I guess, enlightened, just like Buddhists.
So you get in that sector would be spirituality, like those individuals who have achieved such and such, got out of the circle, would be fully self-aware.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
And like I said, a good example of that are just like Buddhists who are practicing to become more mindful of themselves, but they can only do so much. The only person who has actually done it was Buddha himself. So
that was a really nice answer, by the way.
Thank you.
That was thorough, and like, you just ran through that. I was like, wow. Oh man.
Wow.
I actually enjoyed that answer very much, because my thought on what fully aware would be would be knowing your function. So knowing your equation, you could also put it. If you know your equation, whatever number you put into it, you know what the output's going to be.
Yeah.
So even if you don't necessarily know the future, you know how you would handle those events if you were to plug it in. So that's, to me, that would be full self-awareness. You don't have to know everything, say timeline, like past or present, future, but as long as you know how you will process it, handle it, then going forward, it's not a big deal. Nothing's too much of a surprise. You have control over yourself, or at least an understanding of how you're going to move through things. So that was, what a good answer, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So that's what first awareness and full awareness. First awareness, I was looking up some stuff, and it's, babies interacting in the mirror with themselves. Like, you were a baby at one point. Do you remember that shit?
Oh my God. Let me tell you about.
Bullshit.
No. Okay. So
Wait, you do?
No, I just.
Okay.
So I think it was a very like subconscious thing that I did.
Oh, subconscious.
But yeah, subconscious. I remember it was either kindergarten or first grade. I remember sleeping and dreaming about this random house I was in. I was fully capable of thinking, and I was just crawling, and I'm thinking, why am I crawling? And I'm looking at this furniture that I'm not familiar with, and it just took me by surprise, because I woke up and I was like, why did I have that dream? I think 2 or 3 years later, my parents told me, yeah, the first house we lived in was across from McDonald's that got burnt down. And they showed me like some pictures and stuff, and I was like, what? I remember that cabinet. I remember crawling.
There was a similar thing. I remember, it was a dream that's weird. It was a dream to me, and I was crawling under this chair toward these windows, and I remember describing this to my mother. It was way later, like I was older, I think in like early high school, and she started asking me questions about it, and was like, that sounds exactly like the apartment we were in when you were tiny. I was like, oh gee, like maybe it's a memory, or maybe your brain made it up. Maybe you heard the layout, maybe you kind of saw the layout from somewhere else, maybe it was common.
I could see that, and then you just like construct it yourself.
Yeah, because your brain kind of backfills information. But I mean, that's kind of interesting. A dream, and it turns out to be, that's happened to me a lot, actually.
Yeah, so it's just like,
I remember a dream where there was this pool party in this pond, and it had a diving board and everything. It was in the middle of this field, kind of in these hills. And, I think like a year later, I was biking, and I passed, it was a place I hadn't been before, and I passed that small pond, except it didn't have a diving board. It had a shed. And it was the same layout, same hill structure, same grasses. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ.
I guess that does make sense, because like you said, the brain does take things you see during your everyday life and then just puts them in dreams.
Yeah.
So like, you could be talking to a person in your dream that you actually saw in real life. You just don't really remember.
Or was the memory of your dream backfilled? You don't know.
Don't know.
How do you even test that? But also, something I saw, I guess young children, their dreams are generally more plain.
Plain?
Plain. Like less emotion, less characters, less story, less things happening. There's less going on, like less factors with very young children when it comes to dreaming. So I wonder if that plays into awareness at all. But I have that kind of in another point later. I mean, but yeah, children interacting with the mirror, are they conscious
Good question.
and unaware?
Conscious
Or are
and
they
unaware.
aware but not conscious?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I don't know.
I really don't know either.
And so I'm wondering, like, when do you become aware? when do you become conscious? And those questions I simply couldn't answer by looking at this stuff. But I mean, some more interesting things, like one, I was talking about the dreams, how less stories, less characters, less emotions. But I also had the thought of, how do you, awareness comes from, kind of reading data encoded. So, I mean, you stub your toe. You're very aware of your toe. All those sensors are going off. Here's my fucking toe. Like, so now you're aware of your toe. Maybe you weren't before. Because when you're young, you're definitely aware of your hands.
Yes.
You're looking at them all the time. But maybe you're not aware of your feet yet.
Oh, because you've been crawling.
Because you've been crawling, or maybe you had shoes on the whole time.
That's
so
true.
You're aware of maybe your legs, but say you take your shoes off and you run in the wood chips, that sensory feedback, now you're aware of your feet a little more than you were before. And so, does that add to awareness? Does that add to your consciousness? You didn't know you had feet before, but you've been using them this whole time.
Yeah.
Conscious and unaware?
Maybe subconscious and aware.
Subconscious. Well, I mean, is awareness,
I don't know.
does it deal in subconscious and conscious? Maybe that's it. Awareness is about how much of your subconscious are you utilizing or aware of. I hate using the same word for the definition.
Yeah, that
But
made it
it's so
really
hard.
confusing.
It's so hard to do that. But one thing I kind of thought about is, with awareness, your memories are key. If you don't have memories, it's harder to be aware. Now, I don't know this across the board. Like, I wonder if there are trauma patients who lost all their memories, but their body still functions. And in that case, maybe it's a subconscious memory. Mm-hmm. But, it was just that. The brain is recording from birth.
Yes.
And I've heard even before then it's recording. So, I mean, anytime you use your arm, like you're just more aware of the thing you use. And I got into something that was really hard to explain, is when you use your limb, how do you use your limb? Move your finger. You're moving your finger. Now, move your toe the same way you move your finger. Do you move your other toes with it?
My other toes?
Yeah, like crunch your middle toe.
Oh, I get.
Move your middle toe without moving your other toes.
Done.
Really? No. That's harder than moving your middle finger without,
That's true.
moving the other fingers. But I mean, somebody who doesn't really use their hands too much, or, something may be up, they find it harder to separate those digits. So, like, how do you actually use your finger? And I get the whole neuron things and everything, but there are people who sustain injuries where their body doesn't remember how to move their finger. Mm-hmm. Like, they didn't have like severe head trauma, but another injury, they just forget how to move their finger. They know what it feels like to move their finger.
Yeah.
They've moved their finger before. They can tell their finger to move, but it won't move. Mm-hmm. And, you could, over time, you develop, oh, I can wiggle it. Oh, I can close it. Oh, and after time, you can really use your hand, but, how does...
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of the other thing where someone would, I guess, when they're working with just prosthetic arms, mm-hmm. and, the new technology making them move by attaching nerves to them.
Yeah.
But I think this goes with that. But right before, or maybe it's a different test in general, but they would have a mirror, and then they would have one arm out, and the other mirror, and they're just like, for your other arm, move, whatever finger, and it feels like they're doing it. And I think that's just really interesting.
That helps with phantom limb pains and such. They, have the mirror box and they move, you see the reflection of your other hand, but you act as if you're, like you said, moving the one that's gone.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this pain is soothed. Or like they'll have like a brush or something. Same is with a hammer too. You can whack or you could use a fake hammer, but it looks real, and you whack your limb that's in the mirror box, and you might feel it on this hand.
Then you're just like,
Yeah,
It's-
not like feel it, but
like,
you'll have that like, oh,
wow, that's incredible.
crazy stuff. But that,
Imagine having ghost hands.
so it honestly, I thought about that, and it, like, oh my God, are you your body, or are you not your body? Is your body just something that you are using to observe what's around you and manipulate what's around you, and you're not actually your body?
Yeah, I want to say our mind takes over us and controls our bodies just so we can go place to place and look at things.
Well,
and-
even brain. I'm including brain
even
as the
brain.
body.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want to go take a more spiritual route, yeah. Our spirit,
Yeah.
our spirit
Yeah,
guides
we're-
our body, giving it life.
Our bodies are on a thread
Yeah.
of our consciousness. I'll just say that, and I don't have anything to back that up.
I don't know what else.
And
to
we're
say
just
to that.
puppets of ourselves in
Yeah.
a different plane of existence.
Exactly. Maybe we're our own, like, you know, overseers and beings from up above, and we're looking down,
Yeah.
and then we're just like controlling each other like puppets, our own selves.
I think of it almost like you, like the consciousness that you are is a vine, and your body and your existence in, say, this universe, or, you know, other dimensions, or whatever you want to say, is like flowers on that vine. And it's, I don't know, just kind of an expression of you. But I don't know how to describe that. I've got no basis for it. That's sometimes how I think of it. But yeah, connection of willing something, and then the action, like performing the action. What is that connection? And some people say neurons, but I mean, even if you got neurons, there are some
Well-
people who have that trouble.
Isn't willing using neurons because you're like wanting to like
I'm saying willing as not necessarily the not attaching physicality to willing.
okay.
So you could even take out the thought of, I want to move my finger, and just like the act of moving your finger,
Oh, it's just
like
okay.
willing it to move, if that makes any sense, but it not moving.
It's like
how does the action connect with the will?
it's like you breathing continuously, and then you would start manually breathing once you start thinking.
Why'd you do that? I was breathing so
guys-
good before.
Remember to breathe. Remember
hey,
to
you know how you're breathing right now?
Me?
Yeah, keep breathing. Yeah, keep breathing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Make sure you're breathing.
But yeah, no, that's what it reminded me of.